6 years ago, my wife vanished without a trace. One moment she was at home, curled up on the couch with her tea and a dog-eared copy of Rebecca. The next morning, I came back from an early jog and found our front door wide open, her keys still in the bowl, and her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter with 10 unread texts from me. No sign of struggle. No forced entry, no goodbye note, no explanations, just, gone for months, I couldn't sleep. I plastered her photo everywhere, on phone poles, bus stops, Reddit threads, Facebook groups. I even went on local radio. The cops shrugged after 2 weeks. No evidence of foul play. They said, maybe she ran, maybe she cracked, maybe she didn't want to be found, but I knew her, or I thought I did. Her name was Jenna. We'd been married for 3 years. She was funny, fiercely loyal, had a thing for vintage records and peanut butter cookies. She didn't just disappear, and yet she did. Eventually, people stopped asking how I was doing. The world moved on, but I didn't. I still set a plate for her at dinner out of habit. I still kept her closet untouched. I paid the mortgage like she was coming back tomorrow, until last Thursday. It was a rainy afternoon and I was passing through a small town in Pennsylvania for work. Nothing special, just a detour because of construction. I was starving, hadn't eaten since 7 a.m., so I pulled into this old-school diner with a flickering neon sign that read Betty's Place. I walked in, shook off my coat, sat at the counter, and asked for a coffee. The waitress behind the bar turned around, and there she was, Jenna, hair shorter, a little thinner, wearing a cheap uniform and pouring coffee like this was her everyday life. But it was her. I nearly dropped my cup. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Hi there, what can I get you, hon?" No recognition, no shock, just the same fake cheer waitresses use on strangers. I stared at her like I was seeing a ghost. "It's me." I choked out, "Jenna, it's Alex." She blinked once, smiled like I was just another customer. "Sorry, I think you've got the wrong person." "No, no, what the hell is going on?" I stood up, knocking over my coffee. "Where the hell have you been?" The manager came over, a gruff guy in his 50s with a Yankees cap and a crooked name tag. "Is there a problem here?" She knows me. I said, pointing at her, "That's my wife. She disappeared 6 years ago. Look at her. That's Jenna Marks." The manager looked at her. She just shrugged. "I don't know him. Get out." The manager said, stepping in between us. "Now, I looked at her, desperately searching her eyes for something, anything. "You don't remember me, our apartment on Maple, the trip to Lake George. You begged me to adopt a dog named Scooter. Remember that." Her hands trembled slightly, just for a second, but her voice was flat. "Please leave." I got shoved out onto the wet pavement like a lunatic. The door slammed behind me. The neon flickered above my head, but I wasn't crazy. That was her. That was Jenna. And I was going to find out what the hell happened. People kept coming up to me, offering condolences, some heartfelt, some awkward, most just words trying to fill the air. I nodded, shook hands, accepted hugs I didn't feel. My daughter clung to my side the entire time, her small hand gripping mine like an anchor. But Kevin's words wouldn't stop echoing in my head. "Man up." What did that even mean? Don't cry. Pretend I wasn't breaking inside. Put on some artificial display of stoicism, so everyone else could feel more comfortable. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with a bottle of whiskey I didn't touch, staring at the photos on the mantel. Our wedding day, her holding our baby girl in the hospital. A blurry selfie from the beach trip we almost didn't take because she was so tired. We went anyway. She smiled in every one of them. She made us smile. That next morning I called Kevin. "I need to talk to you." I said, "Come over." He sounded confused, maybe even reluctant. "Everything okay?" "No, but come anyway." He showed up an hour later, smelling faintly of cologne and whatever cheap cigar he thought made him feel manlier. I invited him in, offered him coffee, and sat him down at the kitchen table. "Look," he started, probably rehearsing some backpedal in his head. "About what I said yesterday," I held up a hand. "You told me to man up." I said calmly, "And you know what, you're right." He blinked, thrown off. Okay." I leaned forward. "So I did. I've been up all night, thinking about what my daughter needs, about what I need, and here's what I came up with. She needs a father who isn't pretending. She needs someone who can cry when they're hurting, because it teaches her that feelings aren't weakness. She needs a man who can actually show up, not just show off. Someone who listens, nurtures, and leads by love. not by barking orders or bottling things up until they explode. Kevin shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean, I know what you meant. I interrupted. You meant I should stop crying, that I should suck it up, that my grief was somehow inconvenient, but let me ask you something. Where were you when she was in the hospital, when I was juggling work, taking care of our daughter, and trying not to fall apart? He didn't answer. You want to talk about being a man, I said, standing. Then don't come into my home and shame me for grieving my wife. Don't tell my daughter's father to shut down his heart when she needs it open more than ever. He stared at the table, jaw tight. I'm not going to play that version of a man anymore, the one who hides everything, pretends everything's fine when it isn't. That's not strength, Kevin. That's fear in a costume. He finally looked up. So what now? Now, I said, taking a deep breath, you can be part of our lives, if you're ready to show up with some actual heart. Or you can stay on the sidelines, making snide comments from a distance. But I'm done explaining my grief to people who don't deserve to be in it. Kevin left without another word. A week later he came by again, no cigar, no attitude. He asked if I wanted help fixing the broken railing on the porch. He brought donuts for my daughter. He didn't say man up. He just showed up. And that was a start. The porch railing got fixed that weekend. Kevin showed up with tools and a quiet kind of energy I hadn't seen in him before. We worked side by side without saying much. My daughter sat on the steps, munching a powdered donut, watching us like we were building the Eiffel Tower. It wasn't about the railing, of course. It never was. When we finished, I offered him a beer. We sat in silence on the porch, watching the late afternoon light stretch across the lawn. She was the one who always reminded me to check on people. Kevin finally said, "Birthday texts, hospital visits, little things like that. I never realized how much of her was holding this whole group together." "Yeah," I said, nodding slowly. "She carried a lot of people quietly, even you." He chuckled, but it cracked at the edges. "I didn't know how to talk to you at the funeral. I felt useless." "You weren't useless," I said. "You were just repeating what you thought a man is supposed to say." He nodded, ashamed. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said. "But I needed you to hear it anyway." He looked at me, eyes soft now. "I've been thinking a lot since then, about my dad, about how I learned what being a man even was. It was always shut up, work hard, don't complain, no room for feeling stuff. That's the lie," I said. "That feelings make you weak." He sipped his beer. Maybe we both got fed the same lie. Over the next few months, something shifted, not just in Kevin, but in me. I stopped hiding from the grief. I let it live beside me instead of inside me. I cried in front of my daughter when I missed her mother too much, and she would crawl into my lap, her small arms wrapping around my neck. Sometimes I caught her pretending to talk to her mom while playing. Just quiet conversations with an empty chair or a stuffed animal, like her mother was still listening. I didn't stop her. I joined her. One night after putting her to bed, I found a drawing she'd left on the table. It was the three of us, me, her, and her mom, with the words, "Mommy's still in our family, just not in the house." I sat with that for a long time. Kevin started coming by more, sometimes to help, sometimes just to sit. He stopped offering advice and started asking questions. Sometimes he didn't say anything at all, and that was fine, too. We began to have real conversations, not the performative stuff we used to do. He even told me he started going to therapy. Didn't think I'd ever do that, he said with a smirk, but turns out I needed to talk to someone who wasn't trying to measure my masculinity. I smiled. Good, about time. We weren't trying to be better men anymore. We were trying to be better humans. The next Father's Day, I got a card from my daughter. On the front, she'd drawn a superhero in a cape. Only the cape was made of hearts, not lightning bolts or fire. Inside it said, "You're my hero because you cry and laugh and hug and fix things, even when you're sad." I cried when I read it, and I didn't hide it from anyone. It was a rainy Thursday when I dropped my daughter off at college. She had packed more than she needed, of course, half her childhood stuffed into boxes labeled essentials. I carried the heaviest one up 4 flights of stairs while she trailed behind, nervous and excited, chewing her lip the way her mother used to when she was thinking too hard. Her dorm room was small but clean and full of promise, a blank canvas waiting for memories. I helped her hang some photos, one of us on the porch, one of her mom at the beach, laughing into the sun. When everything was in place, we stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say. Then she turned to me. Dad, do you ever stop feeling like you're pretending? I blinked. Pretending what? That you know what you're doing, that you're okay. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. I gave her a tired smile. No, not really. I just got better at being honest about it. She nodded, looking away, then back again. That's what I'm afraid of. That I'll get here and I won't know how to feel everything without being overwhelmed. You'll get overwhelmed, I said. That's part of it, but you'll also come back from it, again and again. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her hands. I don't want to bury things, like people in our family used to, like Grandpa did, like Uncle Kevin did. You won't, I said, sitting beside her. Because you've seen what happens when you don't. Before I left, she hugged me tight, longer than I expected. I felt her heart thumping against mine. Thank you, she whispered, for being soft even when it hurt. I pulled back and cupped her face. You made me brave enough to be soft. The drive home was quiet. Just the hum of tires on wet pavement and the occasional song that made me reach for the volume knob. Not because it was too loud, but because it hit too close. When I got back, Kevin was waiting on my porch with 2 folding chairs and a six-pack. He'd aged, we both had, but there was something settled about him now. Like the weight he carried had finally found a place to rest. He handed me a beer. How'd it go? He asked. She's ready. I said, and scared, but she knows it's okay to be both. He nodded. Smart kid. She gets it from her mom. I said, some of it, he replied. The rest she got from watching you learn how to stay open. We sat there a long time, watching the rain slide off the porch roof, soaking the garden, softening the world. Later that night, I got a text from my daughter. It was a picture of her dorm desk. On it was the photo of her mom. Next to it, a sticky note that read, "It's okay to feel it all, even the hard parts." Underneath she wrote, "This is how I know I'll be okay. Love you, Dad." And in that moment, I realized grief doesn't vanish. It echoes, but so does love and softness, and the quiet kind of strength that holds a family together long after the world has moved on. Years passed, the house got quieter, the porch sagged a little more. The old swing creaked like an elder telling stories. I didn't fix it. I liked the sound. I got used to mornings alone, coffee in the same chipped mug. Letters from my daughter, now a therapist, filled with stories of her own clients' lost kids trying to find their way back to themselves. Sometimes she'd call just to ask, "Do you still talk to Mom?" Every day, I'd say, and I did, not always with words, sometimes just with silence or music, or in the way I opened the curtains wide, the way she used to. Letting light in even on cloudy days. One autumn evening she came home for a visit. Older, steadier, with her was her own daughter, my granddaughter, bundled in corduroy overalls and sticky with apple juice. We sat on the porch again, just like old times. The little one ran between us, singing nonsense songs and collecting leaves like treasures. My daughter turned to me, her eyes soft. She asks about you when we're not here. Calls you the gentle grandpa. I chuckled. I've been called worse. She looked out over the yard at the trees her mother once planted. You did good, Dad, she said. You broke the pattern. I swallowed hard. No, I said, we did. We sat there, 3 generations held together by memory and choice. And when the sun dipped below the trees, my granddaughter climbed into my lap, yawned, and asked, "Did you know my grandma?" I looked at her, at the wide blue eyes so much like her mother's, and smiled. "Yes," I said, "and she would have loved you more than the stars." She leaned into my chest and whispered, "Tell me a story." And so I did, not the kind with dragons or castles, but the real kind, the kind where love endures. Where softness is strength, where we learn, slowly, painfully, beautifully, that to feel deeply is not a flaw, but the legacy we leave behind.